Um, our love football, are great at football, hit hard, mentally tough, great teammates, and so it's really meaningful that that name is growing in meaning. And so, but as far as rebranding and bringing our past, which obviously I grew up with, and all the Super Bowl championships and our future together, you're going to see us head back towards, honoring our past and bringing it together with our future.
And how does winning impact? How does this season and the winning impact how aggressive you may want to see the organization be when it comes to free agency and other moves this offseason?
Look, we're looking for commanders, and whether it be free agency, trades, draft, and obviously we have a lot of cap flexibility. We have a full slate of draft picks. Certainly we're going to be talking to other teams where we can find players that are great at what they do and fit our culture and are great teammates and are situationally aware and hit hard and are tough. Like we're gonna get them to come, and so we're totally focused on improving our team from last year, and I think we're going to do that.
Josh, Ben Standig with The Athletic. To the point of improving on the team, you guys obviously with Jaden, it looks like you may have found a really good young quarterback going forward. That also comes with the opportunity with him on a rookie contract for the next couple of years. How do you kind of assess that opportunity, and do you think that leads to being more aggressive in free agency this year?
Yeah, we have a massive opportunity, and none of us are taking that lightly. We're all fully committed to continuing to build our team and be elite over the long term, right? And so, and obviously that that we understand that contract and those dynamics. And so, like I said, where we can find players that fit us and that we think are going to bring it, we're going to go after them. And so, I don't know how that translates to aggressiveness in free agency. Where Adam and Dan are hard at work, and they're going to advise me on that. But certainly, we're going to do everything we can to improve our team.
And obviously, the way the season unfolded, getting all the way to NFC Championship game, you've said, hey, this is pretty obviously great, but also a bit surprising. You can tell us now, what were your realistic expectations going into this last year about what you guys thought you would actually do?
Look, I knew we were going to go to – no, I'd say I predicted – no, look, obviously the season came out amazing and better than anyone expected, and no one could have sat where we were all sitting at the beginning of the season, where we had entirely, for the most part, a new coaching staff, a new front office. More than half the players were changed. But, obviously – credit to Adam and Dan and their staffs for bringing everyone together, and credit to the players for making it happen on the field. And so, look, we got it. Like we've arrived, and that changes expectations. And I've lived through this before, and we welcome it. And we're just going to work harder and to create a situation where next year we win.
Josh, David Aldridge with The Athletic. In terms of a new facility, new stadium, I should say.
Yep.
What's your vision? Did you want in terms of, do you want just a really great stadium, or do you see it as an opportunity to kind of really transform a neighborhood and have more bells and whistles in terms of restaurants, housing, all of those things that some other teams have tried to do?
Yeah, so I have 3 or 4 things in mind. I mean, obviously, for me personally, I grew up with a great stadium, and I understand, what it's like to play in a stadium that, where it's hard for the visiting team to play, right? I mean, we've experienced different stadiums. Like I said, I've been to every game for the last 2 years, and I see differences. And so, the primary objective is to create a stadium that we're going to win in, because I think if we do that, and so there's all kinds of decisions that go into that. But I also think that we have a responsibility. When a city, takes land and utilizes it, for a stadium, right? They're taking it away from other things they could do, and so it's our responsibility to make it, an amazing economic development opportunity for where it is, and create a lot of jobs, and help that area, right? And so as I think everyone knows, we're considering multiple jurisdictions, but in each case, right, those areas need help, need improvement, and so that's got to be part of it. And the cities themselves have to have their own input as to what they want. These are political processes, right, and they matter to the neighborhoods and to the greater areas. So we're right now in the middle of all that, and so yeah, I think it's both. But for me personally, I start with, like, we need to have a great place where our fans can show up and feel like, and as much as possible, we want that to be an advantage to our team in terms of winning on the field.
Does the success this season speed up a potential timeline? I know you got to go through jurisdictions, cities, city councils, state governments, so there's a certain friction there that you have to navigate that you can't do anything about. But do you think that you've gained a year or more in terms of timeline by the success of the season?
Yeah, look, any time that you win on the field, I mean, we all now experienced what it was like here, right? And it was the reawakening of Washington football here in the DMV and everywhere, right? Because there's lots of people who grew up with the team that I grew up with, and so anytime that you get that reawakening, right, the population at large is supportive, right? And so there's no question that there's some momentum, and we would hope to capitalize on it. But I mean, obviously, we're in dialogue with jurisdictions, with Washington, with Maryland, and really they're what they want to do is a big part of it also. And so and every indication is that everyone is supportive, and so we're just gonna try to move it forward as fast as possible.
Hey Josh, Sam 48 with the Washington Post.
Hello.
In November at a Bloomberg event with David Rubenstein, you said that DC would be the most politically viable because it would be the most accepted by all jurisdictions. I'm wondering if you still feel that way, and if you could explain your thinking there.
Yeah, look, I think that obviously the DMV, right, is 3 jurisdictions, and it turns out DC's in the middle. Plus, it's the location maybe, but plus because of the history. It's location that when we do surveys is the most acceptable. But there's a lot of things that go into this, and we play in Maryland right now. We have an amazing relationship with Maryland. And like I said, it's not just our decision. Like, the decision is about the specific regions and areas and states themselves, and DC itself. So, like, we have a lot of dialogue going with everyone, and we're going to keep pushing forward. Yeah, that I continue to, kind of just be transparent about what the surveys say and how the area feels at large. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of support in Maryland, a lot of support in Virginia. There is. But obviously DC is, kind of aligned with the history and happens to be the easiest place to get to for the most number of fans.
And I was going to ask you, how does that thinking, how does the studies kind of inform your multi-jurisdiction discussions that you're going to have over the next weeks and months?
Yeah, look, these are very complicated things to decide, right? So you have zoning, you have real estate, you have what you can build, what you're allowed to build, and site planning, and so certainly it's an important part of the mix, but it's not the only factor.
Josh Berry-Sverluga from the Washington Post. This is a public-private partnership you're talking about with the stadium. Do you expect to pay for the actual building yourself and get government to help with land and infrastructure, or do you expect to get public money for the building too?
Yeah, look, obviously we're having a lot of discussions right now, and it would be, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to get in front of the governments that we're talking to, the Maryland government, DC government, PG County. I mean, I think it just wouldn't be appropriate, but I appreciate the question.
And just kind of a minutia thing, Dan Quinn at the end of the season talked a little bit about your kind of week-to-week input with Adam and him going through the process. you mentioned Friday calls. Wherever you were around the world, you were always available. And
Right.
what do you get out of that? What was the process like, and what sort of what's the advantage for you to having such?
Yeah, I'm just learning, to be honest with you, from people who've been, kind of good at this for a long time. And, obviously, very happy with what we've got here. But ultimately, right, to a large extent, I have professionals running the team, running the front office. And so I'm somewhat deferring to them. But obviously, ultimately, right, I have to make sure that I understand, what's going on enough that if there was something that I disagree with, I would, involve myself. But right now, very happy with the leadership I have in place.
Josh, Steve Weiner from the Associated Press. Following up on John's question earlier, is it safe to say the commander's name is around just to stay? Is that safe to say
Yeah.
from your standpoint?
Yes. And we're actually, I think it's now being embraced by our team, by our culture, by our coaching staff. And so, we're going with that.
And I'm curious, how did your experience kind of dealing with the city of Philadelphia and Comcast and all that with the arena kind of affect your stadium thoughts here? And obviously, you're dealing with 3 jurisdictions here, maybe 2 there. How did that sort of affect or maybe help you prepare for this?
Look, anytime you go, like our North Star, it really is the same approach, which is ultimately like, what's the best, like I said, there's a lot of factors, but what's the best thing to do for the underlying population, kind of. And in the case of Philly, we ended up in an amazing situation where we're developing an arena, in the sports complex in Philly for the Sixers. We're developing the Center City in Philly. We have Comcast as a partner. We're getting hockey and basketball. So I think that we ended up with an amazing situation, and for Philly, right? And obviously it's a little more complicated here because it's multi-jurisdictional, but we're keeping our eye on the same thing and trying to balance everything and do what we think is the best thing for the city, for the overall region, and the fans, and the team, and that's how we're going to think about it. But it was a good education.
Hey, Josh. Eric Flack from WUSA 9. Emails from the city show that you personally called Chuck Schumer trying to get the RFK bill passed, and that you personally called with Jason Wright, Wes Moore, to try and get Maryland to back off. How do you look at somebody from Maryland and say you're seriously still considering Maryland when you seem to be so laser focused, including that picture in the Oval Office, on a DC option?
Look, I would say that Maryland's been Governor Moore and his team have been amazing, and actually, what we were trying to do is get DC to the table. So, I want to make sure that we're clearing up this misconception. DC was not at the table because they didn't own the land. They didn't have control of the land. So what we wanted to do and what we accomplished doing was to allow for the federal government to transfer control of the land to D.C., right? Now, D.C. has to decide what it wants to do. It's got a lot of flexibility to do whatever it wants with the land. And Governor Moore was incredible in terms of saying, we went to Governor Moore and we said, look, we just want D.C. at the table. And he said, look, I'm on board for that, but I want to make sure that if that's a direction that D.C. wants to go and you want to go, that you take care of Maryland also. And, of course, we were going to do that anyway. And so I think that there's no nothing has been decided, and we're going down both paths at once. And that was the whole conversation. So all that happened so far, and yeah, I was working pretty hard to get D.C. to the table because I thought it was the right thing to do. And now we got the hard work of figuring out the multitude of specifics that you need to figure out when you're doing something like this. And D.C. really has to decide what it wants to do.
After the RFK land became official in D.C. hands, you made, in your ownership group up with the Sixers, made a pretty surprising about-face and reached a 50-50 partnership with Comcast on an alternative arena agreement there, as opposed to you financing a downtown arena.
Yep.
Are those two things separate, or can you see them as intertwined? And if you're saving money in Philly, does that mean there's more money for a Commander Stadium here?
Yeah, so, I mean, listen, first of all, they're not intertwined at all. They're totally separate situations, and obviously, you know, we have the ability to finance both the arena and the stadium. They're totally separate situations, and so, and listen, ultimately, deals, you know, about face. I mean, deals kind of come. Ultimately, if you keep your eye on what's the best thing for the city, negotiations don't happen in a smooth way, and then you got to be able to pivot and willing to pivot, and when you think it's the right thing to do, and so we ended up in a great place in Philly, and I'm hoping we end up in a great place, and I'm very, very confident we'll end up in a great place here.
Mr. Harris, Mark Seagraves, NBC Washington. And I understand why you don't want to get ahead of the conversation on the proposals coming from Maryland and D.C., but from your point of view, D.C. has several different stadiums with several different models, business models. Do you see a stadium in D.C., a business model that you prefer? Do you prefer to own the stadium yourself? Would you want to play in a stadium that is owned by the jurisdiction?
Yeah, again, I appreciate all these questions, and I'm going to go back to my same answer, which is that really it would be D.C. and Maryland are deciding what they want, right? And then we're going to react to that and let those conversations play out in confidence. And all I can tell you is that we're really hard at work right now trying to move the process forward with everyone and try to figure out, again, an amazing place where opposing teams fear to come and our fans love to come and our players love to come, and then do that in the context of, really improving the area where we're building and creating a lot of jobs and economic development. So that's what we're going to do. But I can't really get into the specifics. The cities have to, dictate, when and how we talk about some of those details. And then obviously, I'm happy to be available and react to them. But that's really the appropriate way for me to move forward on all this.
Do you have a timeline on when you would like to have proposals in hand and make a decision and break ground? Can you update us on that timeline for you?
Yeah, I think we've talked about being done in 2030 as being a base case. We're going to sort of stick with that and not get into, the specifics of the timeline because, again, we're reacting to a political process. And, look, you should listen to the jurisdictions themselves. They've given some hint as to what they think. And, I'm listening to them like you are and reacting, and we'll keep up. And so I'm going to let them, drive the conversation on timing and process and financial details, because that's the way I think it should be.
My last key. Three more questions. Can you just what do you say to taxpayers about justifying why taxpayers should in any way fund, regardless of the jurisdiction, building a stadium for a professional team?
Yeah, again, I think that by and large, anything we do will create massive economic opportunity for that area, from thousands of jobs to, a ton of economic opportunity moving forward, construction jobs, and a lot of development opportunity around it. And so that'll all be in the mix, right? And I understand that question, right? And I've been through this. And the cities are going to make that case, and then we're going to stay behind the cities and allow them to make the case they want to make. But certainly, that will all be. It's going to have to make sense for the people living there, right? And the communities themselves, of course, no question.
Hey, Jess, Scott Abraham, ABC7. Obviously, this time last year, you officially announced that Dan Quinn was going to be your head coach. So quite the 12 months for you. What are you most proud of over these 12 months?
What I'm most proud of, obviously, there's a lot, honestly, that I'm proud of. But first of all, the leadership. I think I made the right leadership choices. And, Mark Klaus is now in the building, in the business. We're going to be a lead on the business side. But I really feel like, as I said to you then, my most important three jobs were picking a coach, picking a GM, and then picking someone to lead the business. And I feel great about where we are and the leadership we have in place. Secondly, I feel super proud, obviously, of how excited and happy the Washington community is and the reawakening of Washington football. And that's everything from like how we played on the field and, you know, what we did on the field. And really, I mean, obviously we won 4 games last year, and to be going to the NFC Championship, how can you not be proud of that? I mean, I'm very proud of that and very appreciative of the players and everyone who was involved in that. But also, like, listen, I mean, I wandered around. I made it a point of meeting a lot of fans in the stadium, outside of the stadium, and people are super happy here. And, you know, like, people were literally crying in bars, and, you know, grown men, you know, grown women, and it's really helped the happiness and the excitement. And, you know, there's very few things in the DMV that unites the whole DMV, and the Washington Commanders is like front of the list. And so that's probably the thing I feel most proud about, that people here are appreciative of Washington football again, like I felt when I was growing up. And so let's keep it going.
Clearly, there's a lot of talk with the new stadium, but what about a training facility? Are you committed to keeping it here in Ashburn? Obviously, you invested in a brand new grass field. What are your thoughts on maybe building a new training facility in a different jurisdiction, or do you have plans to stay here in Ashburn?
Yeah, so first of all, we're going to do a lot of things in the offseason to make players' lives better, to make coaches' lives better, to make front office lives better, and obviously, whether it's the wet area, the weight room, our indoor facility, you're going to see a lot of changes here, and you're going to see a lot of changes in the stadium. We're going to continue to build on, you know, the $75 million we had earmarked, so that'll be north of 100. You know, we got a whole bunch of plans to help the premium areas, to continue to build infrastructure and to continue to make the upper deck better. I mean, a lot of stuff. And so, but here, you know, really, you know, we're going to focus right now on the stadium itself, and, you know, this, and I think the players like to be here, coaches like to be here. That's not to say that we won't revisit it over time, but we're focused on fixing this place up right now. We're certainly, you know, going to look at that, but like right now, the big project is the stadium, and, you know, and so right now we're going to spend a lot of money trying to make this place better for the people that work, live, and play here. All right. Thanks, Josh. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Next time I need a better chair, almost.
Oh, yeah. Drop it.